A poor village boy saves woman from flash flood. She returned as a billionaire. Before we go further, please ensure to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories like this one. A tranquil village rests quietly in the cradle of green hills, its dusty paths winding through mud brick homes. Morning light filters through the mist, revealing a place that breathes simplicity. Roosters crow in the distance, smoke curls from clay chimneys, and the gentle rustle of leaves whispers stories older than time. Though peaceful, the village wears poverty like a second skin, visible, constant, yet silently endured. Among the scattered homes, a barefoot boy named Arjun hurries along a narrow path, a rusty bucket swinging in his hand. His clothes hang loose and worn, patched where fabric had long given up. But his eyes glow with quiet determination. At just 12, Arjun carries more responsibility than most boys twice his age. He reaches a shallow stream and fills the bucket with ease, then notices an elderly woman struggling to lift a bundle of firewood. Without hesitation, he offers his help. She smiles gratefully. Arjun says nothing, just nods and continues on. Passing under a neem tree, he finds his younger siblings waiting. From his pocket, he pulls out a boiled potato, splits it into 3 pieces, and hands them each a share. They eat in silence, bonded not by abundance, but by love. Arjun doesn't complain. He never asks for more. Since his father's passing 2 years ago, he has become the quiet strength of his family. He wakes before sunrise, fetches water, chops wood, helps his mother in the market, and somehow still finds time to laugh. At home, his mother kneads dough while humming a lullaby. Arjun stokes the fire, alert to every sound in the house. When his little brother sneezes, he reaches for the family's only blanket and tucks it around him. Their hut is no more than 4 walls and a leaking roof, but it holds something stronger than comfort. It holds love. Outside, the village hums with the energy of daily life. Children chase a deflated ball across puddled ground, laughing as they run. Arjun joins for a moment, kicking the ball with joy that comes not from what he has, but from who he is. He carries no bitterness, no envy, only resilience. The wind begins to shift. A strange stillness settles over the village. Leaves spin in the air, chased by the first low rumble of thunder in the distance. Arjun glances skyward. Heavy clouds roll over the hills, darker and more menacing than the usual rainstorms. His mother steps out of the hut, eyes narrowed toward the sky. "Bring the goats inside," she says, her voice calm but firm. Arjun nods and runs off without a word. As he disappears into the fields, the first raindrop splashes against the dry earth. It hisses, as if warning of what's to come. Above the quiet village, the sky continues to darken. Thunder rolls deeper. What awaits is not just another storm, but the moment that will change Arjun's life forever. The sky cracked open, unleashing a torrent that swallowed the village whole. What began as a steady rain had turned violent. Sheets of water pounded the rooftops, drummed against the mud walls, and churned the narrow paths into flowing streams. Arjun, soaked to the bone, fought against the wind as he and his mother rushed to tie down their roof with frayed ropes. The ground beneath them shifted with each step, turning to sludge. Inside the hut, his siblings huddled close, wrapped in blankets. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the fields in brief, blinding flashes. The river that curved past their village, usually a gentle trickle, had turned monstrous. It surged and roared like a wild beast unleashed. In the chaos, a faint sound reached Arjun's ears. A scream, a thin, almost drowned by the storm, but real. He froze, listening harder. Another cry, desperate and raw, carried by the wind. Without hesitation, he dropped the rope and sprinted toward the riverbank. The path was unrecognizable. Water flowed like a second river through the fields, tearing up roots, carrying debris. Arjun stumbled, but pressed on, clutching a coiled rope and a bamboo stick he'd grabbed on instinct. As he neared the river, the cries became clearer, closer, more urgent. And then he saw her. A woman clung to a half-submerged tree, her clothes torn, her face pale. One hand gripped the branch, the other reached out toward nothing. The current pulled at her legs with a terrifying force. She was seconds from slipping away. Arjun's heart pounded. He scanned the surroundings. No one else was near. No time for help. Tying one end of the rope to a thick post on the shore, he wrapped the other around his waist. He jabbed the bamboo into the water for balance and stepped in. The current nearly swept him off his feet, but he held firm, inching forward. Each step was a battle, mud sucking at his legs, water crashing into his chest, the storm blinding him. The woman's grip faltered. Her head dipped beneath the water, then surfaced again. Arjun shouted, urging her to hold on. Finally, he reached her. She looked at him with eyes full of terror and disbelief. "Take the stick," he yelled. She grasped it weakly. With one hand braced on the tree, Arjun pulled her arm around his shoulders and began the agonizing journey back. Step by step, fighting the flood with every muscle in his body. By the time they reached the shore, both were shaking, soaked, and breathless. She collapsed, coughing violently. Arjun dropped beside her, panting. For a moment, the storm around them seemed to fade. Their eyes met, hers wide with shock, brimming with tears. She didn't speak. She didn't have to. Without a word, Arjun lifted her again and began the long walk home. Thunder rolled above as rain continued to fall, but the boy moved forward, one step, one breath, one act of courage at a time. And behind him, the raging river carried on, unaware of the life that had just been saved. The storm howled through the night, but inside Arjun's modest hut, warmth flickered from the small fire he had managed to coax back to life. The woman he rescued lay wrapped in a blanket, her clothes hung near the flames, steaming slowly. Her hands trembled as she clutched the cup of hot lentil broth offered by Arjun's mother, who moved about the room without question or complaint. No one asked who she was. In this home, survival came first, judgment second. Arjun's younger siblings stared in quiet fascination. To them, she seemed almost otherworldly, her voice delicate, her eyes sharp, though now dimmed by exhaustion. She spoke little, except to whisper a hoarse "thank you" whenever Arjun brought her water or adjusted the blanket. That night, sleep came slowly. The hut creaked under the weight of rain, but inside, calm settled. The storm had not taken everything. It had, in fact, brought someone in. By morning, the clouds had scattered. Mist clung to the ground, and the river had retreated to its banks, leaving behind broken branches and scattered debris. The woman stood at the doorway, dressed in dry clothes offered by Arjun's mother. She looked out over the village, her gaze thoughtful. Turning to Arjun, she approached quietly. He was outside, gathering sticks for the fire, mud streaking his legs, sleeves rolled to his elbows. "What's your name?" she asked softly. He paused, surprised by her voice, clearer now, calm. "Arjun," he said, looking up. She nodded, as if memorizing it. "I won't forget you, Arjun. I promise." Before he could respond, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a silver ring. Pressing it into his hand, she smiled. "I'll return." And then, just like that, she was gone. She walked away down the same muddy path she had arrived by alone, no carriage, no entourage. Just footprints left in the soft earth and a silence heavy with unfinished stories. Arjun stood there for a long moment, watching the figure shrink into the trees. Behind him, his mother stepped out, her hands on her hips. "She won't come back," she said matter-of-factly. "People like that, they move on. They forget." Arjun didn't reply. He looked down at the ring in his palm, then tucked it into a tin box beneath his sleeping mat. The days returned to their rhythm. Arjun was once again the boy waking before dawn, chopping wood, fetching water, helping his siblings dress for school. The excitement of the storm faded into the folds of daily life. He walked barefoot along the rocky path to school, books wrapped in a threadbare cloth, dreams tucked behind quiet eyes. He didn't speak of the woman, not because he'd forgotten, but because something inside him had changed. He didn't expect anything, not a reward, not a return. But deep down, he carried the moment like a seed waiting for rain. Years had passed since the storm had washed over the village, and the hills stood silent, as if holding their breath. The simple rhythms of life in the village continued, unaffected by the world beyond. But today, something was different. A distant hum of engines cut through the quiet, growing louder as black SUVs rolled down the narrow village road, their polished surfaces reflecting the sunlight. The villagers stopped what they were doing, their heads turning as the unfamiliar vehicles came to a slow halt at the heart of the village. Whispers spread like wildfire. Who were they? Why were they here? And why was it that the arrival of these sleek, shiny cars felt so out of place in this humble corner of the world? Arjun, now a teenager, squinted as he looked toward the crowd gathered near the road. His heart skipped a beat when a figure stepped out of the first SUV. Elegantly dressed, her demeanor calm yet confident. It was Ananya, the woman he had rescued all those years ago. He hadn't recognized her at first, but the moment she looked his way, it all came rushing back. Ananya's eyes searched the village, and when they landed on Arjun, her face broke into a soft, knowing smile. Without a second thought, she made her way through the villagers and walked toward him. Arjun froze for a moment, his heart pounding as memories of the storm and the night he saved her life flooded his mind. "Arjun," she said, her voice trembling slightly, as if the weight of time had finally caught up with her. She embraced him, her arms tight around him, her eyes filled with gratitude and something more, an emotion he couldn't quite name. "I never forgot you," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the murmurs of the village. "That moment, it changed everything for me. I owe my life to you." Arjun stood there, stunned, his mind racing. He had always wondered if he would ever see her again. The woman who had vanished in the morning mist, leaving nothing but the memory of her gratitude. And now, here she was, standing before him, a stranger, and yet, not a stranger at all. Ananya pulled away, her hands resting on his shoulders as she looked at him with newfound purpose. "I've spent the years since trying to understand what that moment truly meant. It wasn't just about being saved, it was about the power of kindness, of courage. You showed me that, Arjun, and it inspired me to change my life." The villagers stood in awe as Ananya walked through the village, her every word carrying weight. She spoke of her plans to build schools, clinics, homes, everything the village needed to rise above the struggle it had endured for so long. The promise of hope in her voice was palpable. Arjun's eyes widened, disbelief written across his face, but beneath it, there was a flicker of hope, a belief that change was possible. As Ananya looked back at him, her gaze steady and warm, Arjun felt a wave of emotion wash over him. In that moment, he realized that life, much like the river that had once swept through their village, could change course in an instant, all because of one act of kindness. And now, that kindness was returning to the place it had once saved. The village was quiet again, but this time, there was a different kind of silence, one filled with possibility. The sun dipped low behind the hills of the village, casting a golden hue over the rustic homes. In the small, modest house of Arjun and his family, a moment of change hung in the air, as delicate as the morning mist. Ananya sat across from Arjun, her gaze warm but serious, holding a letter in her hands. "This scholarship, Arjun, it's everything you've worked for. You've got the potential to make something extraordinary of yourself. With mentorship and resources, you'll learn, grow, and, one day, come back to help your village." Ananya spoke, her voice unwavering yet gentle. Arjun's eyes flickered between the letter and his mother, seated beside him. His mother's hands were folded in her lap, her face a mixture of pride and worry. It was clear, this was a decision he couldn't make lightly. I don't know, Ananya. My family needs me here. I promised my father I'd take care of the fields, help with the construction, be here for everyone," Arjun said, his voice tight with conflict. His gaze wandered to his mother, who had always been his pillar, the one who believed in him even when he didn't believe in himself. "Arjun, the world is bigger than our village. You have a chance to change not just your future, but the future of so many others. It's not easy to leave, but sometimes the hardest choices bring the greatest rewards," his mother said, her voice soft but filled with a quiet strength. Arjun looked at his mother, the weight of her words sinking in. He saw the pride in her eyes, but also the understanding. She knew this was the right step for him. His heart pounded in his chest, his mind torn in two directions, one pulling him to the security of home, the other to a vast, unknown world of opportunities. "I'm scared, Ma. What if I fail? What if I'm not good enough?" Arjun whispered, the fear in his voice raw. His mother reached for his hand, her touch a calming presence. "You have something that no one can take away, Arjun. A good heart, a strong spirit. That's all you need to succeed." Arjun hesitated, his fingers tracing the edges of the scholarship letter. The quiet hum of the village outside seemed to pause, waiting for his answer. Finally, he nodded, his voice barely a whisper. "I'll go. For the chance. For everything you've taught me." The next day, the village hummed with the sound of construction. Workers gathered, the rhythm of progress setting in motion what was once only a dream. The same hands that once tilled soil now held the promise of something more. As Arjun boarded the plane, his heart heavy with the weight of departure, the world outside the window seemed so vast, so full of possibility. It was his first time on an airplane. The excitement was laced with nervousness, but he knew one thing for sure, his journey had just begun. Years later, at a charity event, Arjun stood beside Ananya, his sharp suit a reflection of the man he had become. He had made a name for himself, and now, with Ananya by his side, he was giving back to the community that had given him so much. Voiceover, one act of courage, one moment of kindness, was all it took to change a destiny. As the screen faded to black, Arjun smiled, knowing that every step he had taken, every challenge he had overcome, had led him here, to a life he could never have imagined. And yet, it was the life he had always been meant to live. If you enjoyed this story, ensure to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing, heartfelt stories like this. Also, let us know where you're watching from, and drop your thoughts in the comments.